So my beautiful guest, Julia Wolfram, is a love, relationship, sex coach, yoga instructor, and I have given you a little bit of an introduction, Julia. By the way, welcome, welcome to the podcast. I have given you an introduction, but I would love for you and for my listeners to fill in any gaps on your journey of how you got here to be a sex, love, relationship coach / yoga instructor.
Yeah, thank you, Kasia, for having me. I'm really stoked and I'm really looking forward to our little talk. Where do I start? So I guess I had a time in my life where I just worked and studied at the same time. So I was spending basically 500 hours working and studying a month at least. So that's quite a lot. And I was drained. And then I fell into this big, massive gap of not knowing where to go from there. And in this gap, I went to Bali, which was kind of a place for me that has shown me before that it can be really relaxing and can ground me a lot and bring me to who I really am. And so I went to Bali without any knowing where I'm going or what I'm doing. And I started diving, to be honest, which is one of my main hobbies and my main passion. I'm also a dive instructor along the way. So I've done this journey. I completed that, even though I'm not working as a dive instructor, but yeah. But then eventually, after a couple of years, the same thing happened to me again. So I thought, I go take a month off and everything will be fixed. But obviously it wasn't, because I went back into the same wheel of just working. And I was like, nah, I have enough. That is not where I want to end up in 30 years. So I decided to quit my job and go traveling and explore. And it actually started, now thinking back at it, I started with a podcast I was listening to about just digital nomads, starting your life somewhere else and so on. And there was a German girl and she lived in Egypt. And she talked about her husband doing desert trips in Egypt. And I was so interested in it. My heart was actually calling me to go there. So I just, without knowing them, without knowing anything about Egypt, I just booked a trip, went there for New Year's Eve. And I went on a 4-day trip through the desert with them, staying, sleeping in the desert and everything, walking every day. And it was just the most beautiful, insane experience for myself, because you're basically by yourself with other people. We had Bedouins who were cooking the most nutritious and nourishing food for us. And I had amazing conversations with the people on the trip, really enlightening conversations. So that's, I think, where my path to spirituality started. And in this year, so that was New Year's 2018, 2019. And in 2019, my spiritual journey just continued with doing workshops. I had a week-long workshop with Dr. Joe Dispenza, who is just incredible. And this week just transformed everything in my life, my whole perspective. And then I ended up being in Bali again. I was supposed to write my master's thesis, which I completely lost the drive of actually finishing that, completing all that. And then a friend of mine said, why don't you do a yoga teacher training? You're good in teaching, so maybe that's something. Because I'm an active person. I did a little bit of yoga, not excessively, but a little bit. And I was like, well, why not? I have nothing to lose. And it's a 3-week journey, so it's 200 hours. Well, we'll see. So I basically booked last minute a yoga teacher training in Bali and had 3 weeks in this beautiful resort, learning so much about yoga, so much about the philosophy, not only the movement, because yoga is not about the movement. And these 3 weeks were just incredible. We were 24 people, and we were 24 really connected people, which made a massive difference. And not only the knowledge of the yoga, but also the people made a big impact on me. And after that training, I just knew I want to teach that. I want to bring that philosophy into the world and want to help people understand that it's actually so important to stay connected to your bodies, because we live a lot of the times just in our heads and we forgot to to drop into the body and to actually listen to the wisdom of your body, which I have done probably my entire life until then. And that has helped me to actually understand a lot about myself and my body and where things heading and why I have certain symptoms and all these things. So that became a passion of mine. And then I ended up in Australia because of a friend's wedding, and then COVID started. And I met my partner and decided to stay in Australia. And because I couldn't really do much, I wasn't allowed to work because of the visa situation. I couldn't go where I wanted to because of COVID. So I basically came across again on a podcast, a lady called Layla Martin, and she just described a beautiful technique how to connect with your partner on a deeper level. So we tried it, and I was really intrigued by what she was explaining and how everything unfolded between my partner and I. So we had this beautiful creation of our relationship, and I was like, this is just from listening to a podcast. And I was like, I wonder how that would actually unfold if you go deeper and actually start studying it. And then at the right time, she just offered a coaching training, so to become a sex, love, and relationship coach. And I was like, I knew that's where I want to go, because everything seemed so easy and natural. And the way it has unfolded in our relationship was just beautiful, because our connection was deeper than anything I have experienced before. We were in a true partnership. Everything was between us, like just it flew. Yeah, everything was so natural and without any barriers. We just, yeah, it was insane, like really incredible how it unfolded between the two of us, to be honest. And then this training was so intense. It's a year full of training, really online, but like you have to invest a lot of time. And you start to actually look at yourself first, which was incredible, because who does that really to a certain extent, and especially with sexuality being a topic that is kind of taboo in today's society still, which is ridiculous because it's the most beautiful thing and it's the most natural thing between two human beings. And looking at all the depths of the healing you can actually reach through your sexuality was mind-blowing for me. So I've transformed during that training so much. Like I've been able to heal a lot of woundings. I've been able to understand a lot of childhood issues that showed up during my adult life now. I've been able to heal that and creating an even, deeper relationship with my partner on a completely new level I've not even imagined before. And knowing that I was so passionate about what I've experienced, I just knew I wanted to bring that out into the world. And I know for me, it's like I love studying and I love looking into knowledge and all that. But if I experience something on my own in my body, that gives me the extra drive and extra passion to actually bring that across to other people, because I know it's true, because I know I've felt it and I know that other people will be able to feel that too. And so that's basically where my whole life has transitioned to. So now I'm started my own business, basically starting as a yoga teacher while I was still training as a coach. And now I'm trying to merge both together, because I feel like the main issue or the main thing I want to bring across to people is to drop back in your body, to really take the time to listen to your body and noticing the wisdom that is actually in your body, because our bodies are so incredible. We basically store knowledge from our ancestors back into like 5 to 7 generations. And all these issues are in our body and causing us harm. And if we don't unfold these woundings, then we would just pass it down to the next generation. And besides all that, especially being a woman, there is a lot of trauma going on in that community, in that area of being a woman, and understanding your own natural cycle and cycling with the nature, which is just normal to do, has been forgotten. And it's a passion of mine to actually start educating around that topic more and more, to understand that your period is not an evil thing. It is actually something your body is doing because you're able to create new life. And there's so much beauty behind it. And I feel like we've lost all that. And I'm really sad about that, because there's so much beauty in it to be a woman and to accept that, yes, there's once a month where you actually can take the time to retrieve and to say, no, I need the time to bleed and I need to take time for myself. And you can be selfish in that time. And most of the time, we are not allowed to do that because being selfish and taking time for yourself is not accepted. Mm-hmm. So my main mission is to actually educate people around that and bring them back in their body. And doing that with yoga is one way. And in the coaching, I'm using a lot of embodiment practices. So really dropping in the body and feeling what comes up. Where does it sit? How does it look like? Is there a voice connected? Are there any colors, anything coming up with it? And seeing in my clients that, yes, on the beginning, it's difficult because we're not used to it. Already closing your eyes and just feeling is confronting for a lot of people. But seeing the shift in them from not being able to close your eyes on the beginning and now actually slowly creating this safety within you and noticing what's happening in your body, and then even listening to your intuition that comes up within your body to make decisions, to live your life and all that is just so beautiful and empowering for the people themselves, because they all of a sudden realize that they basically can change their life however they want to. And I know a lot of people say, you can change your life however you want to, but no one tells you how to. And understanding that by dropping in your body and listening to your intuition, to the wisdom that's in you, it's just easier. It becomes easy and natural to actually do that. And that is really beautiful to witness in people. And that's why I really love this work. And even in my yoga classes.
Yeah. Oh, wow. This is, it's such a delight to hear you speak with so much passion about your journey, but also your work. And we will get to your work in a minute, but I'm just curious, and please only share what feels comfortable for you. But I guess what I'm interested in knowing is when you heard the podcast by Layla Martin, was it? And this practice, and then you implemented it with your partner. Is it, or as you dive even deeper into this, was it about learning how to speak to a man, as in, like, how us women tend to nag or treat them like chill? Was it a matter of shifting that? Was it a matter of perhaps more intimately relating, feeling comfortable voicing things, saying what feels good, what doesn't feel good, where the barriers are? Was it something completely different? I'm just kind of curious, what was that thing that made it so amazing for you?
I guess for us it was to understand where both of us come from and why we react a certain way. So actually really looking behind patterns that unfold in your relationship. And we started with little tools of connecting on a deeper level, like just breathing together or eye gazing, all these little connection tools we have now to really try to spend time together, and not only being together and sitting next to each other on the couch, because that's not connecting, being on a deeper level together, like really fully listening, being present with each other, like nothing else matters while you're with your partner. You're just focusing with all your senses to your partner to listen what's actually happening. And our communication has become much better with that too, because we started to really talk about everything. Like you're saying, this nagging and having boundaries of not voicing your opinion or your desires, it's a big thing. But when you feel connected to someone and truly listen to, you start to open up and you start to actually understand your own desires, because all of a sudden you're able to express them. And then you have the power to say, okay, look, I think I want this, or I don't like that. There is a boundary I have to place here, which you can do in a loving way. And you can erase all the concerns you have in your relationship, and your partner's not getting offended. And this is so beautiful, because most of the time what's happening within us has nothing to do with our partner. And what we understood by that time is that everyone has their own story. And if you actually look behind that, like if, for example, your partner acts out because something triggered him and he got really mad or angry. And if I would take that to heart and say, oh, what did I do? Why is he upset with me? I start taking his story onto me and say, okay, it's all my fault. What did I do wrong? But most of the time, has nothing to do with me. It's always on a deeper level. So maybe something I've done might have triggered him, but it is not actually the issue, what I've done. The issue is way deeper, and understanding that and then saying, hey, I can see you're angry, but I can feel that it's not because of me. What's actually happening? And then, so that has really changed the way we interact with each other and the way we communicate with each other. Yes, it's not happening every time because it's not that easy when you're emotional and not grounded in yourself, but it's definitely an opening, and understanding that makes it so much easier.
That's good. And it actually made me think of situations where as women, and especially when we become mothers and we're so consumed by looking after this little being or a few little beings, that we kind of get lost and forget about us as the woman, you know, the lover. And then before you know it, it's been weeks or months or years, and your husband, your partner, becomes like this stranger. And the thought of, you know, having an intimate relationship with them, or, you know, sex even, you know, it just becomes like, oh, I just can't think about it. It becomes a chore. It becomes very much like cold shoulder, you know, off-putting. What do you think is happening there? Like, how do we bounce back from that, or how do we find ourselves, or what do we do in a more practical way to kind of come back to?
Yeah, that's quite interesting, because so I'm currently pregnant, as you know, and I'm facing that thought in my head as well, and in our relationship. Being a mom is a big transition for a woman, and unfortunately now most of families are designed that they are alone at home, and it's either the mom or the dad staying at home, so one person's in charge of the whole childcare. Whereas before, if you look back, not even that long ago, like, or even in Europe, where grandparents lived either in the same house or close by, and they were raising the children together, where the woman could take some time for herself to actually nourish herself. And we don't have that in our society anymore, because we think as a woman, I will do that, I will manage everything by myself. I will be a mom, I will be successful in my job, I will be a good partner, I will clean the house, I will cook. We take all these jobs on because that's what we kind of feel we have to do, maybe because of some expectations someone raised with us, maybe because of things we heard around us in society, or friends are telling us, things we take on from movies, you know, all these biases we get constantly, or we face constantly. And if we understand that it is okay to take time for yourself, and it's not selfish to ask for help, and if you start looking at spending maybe half an hour a day just by yourself, taking it slow, drinking a coffee or a tea, or reading a book, or even having a bath, already this half an hour time by yourself without any other responsibilities will help you to feel yourself again. And it will help you to be you, rather than I'm a mom, I'm the lover, I'm the career woman, you know, I'm the cleaner, whatever. It helps you to actually be a woman again. And I think that's the main issue at the moment, that we don't allow this time. And then, yes, of course, it's tricky having kids around, having a husband, having a house to clean, and all these things. But if we feel like we're actually ourselves, then we can also have, or we have that capacity to look after others, and we have the capacity to connect with our partner again.
Oh, wow. Yes, because you're right. We are very much conditioned at the moment to go, 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 right? It's like at some point, perhaps in the 80s, the woman decided, you know, we have to be stronger than the man, better than the man, right? And so we forgot that ability to be in that feminine energy is actually a beautiful gift, and it's way more powerful when we learn when to be in that masculine, when it's okay to honor the feminine energy, and that we don't have to compete with men. And I remember, because you said, Julia, about your own pregnancy and about to enter motherhood again in a different way. Like, I feel like you have already this knowledge that, for example, I didn't have going in. And so I got swept away in this wanting to be the hero, the martyr, like I could do everything that you described. That was me. And, it was easy for me when I just focused on, okay, I'm like this 1950s housewife, all I have to do is just keep the house nice and warm and clean and look after my child/children. And I don't have to worry about a career or going out, because that just felt really hard at that time. And it could be just me, but something happened to me after the birth of my daughter, where I just wanted that safe place at home, a very simple life. But very quickly did I realize that it wasn't fulfilling. Not the mother part, but just, we know housework, it never ends. And I always say it's not fulfilling, it's not amazing. No one gives you awards or accolades. You don't get paid, you just have to do it, right? So I noticed that moment came where I wanted more. And I know that a lot of my listeners are women who are currently perhaps in that situation or are about to go into the motherhood. And so getting this heads up from you is fantastic, that it's okay to share the load, and it's okay to take a break. Now, you and I come from cultures where, like you described, the grandparents were close by. I can't tell you how often I hear from my friends here when, my family was close, my husband's parents were close, and we always had the kids somewhere on the weekends, and then we're going somewhere, and everyone was like, you are so spoiled. Like, I can't get my mum to come and babysit, or they're so far away, But yes, we come from this kind of where this is normal. And now that it has changed, or perhaps because we're here and it's a little bit different, there is definitely a bit of a strain, a little bit extra pressure. So you have mentioned already a few ways that we can come back to ourselves. Could you highlight a few specific things, and perhaps how do we get rid of that guilt? Because I know that if my cup is full, I can give more, but I know that took a while to realize.
Yeah, it is not easy, that's for sure. And I just want to give everyone credit who's going through that phase at the moment and feeling exactly the same way, because it's unfortunately nothing, like anyone is telling us how to deal with at the moment. There are beautiful resources out now, and there's more coming, because I can feel the shift in everything happening around womanhood, birthing, and parenting. So there's a lot of, like, a big shift happening. And if you go through that phase where you're struggling of being a mom, or even just giving birth soon, and you're a bit anxious of what's happening with myself and with my partner and with our relationship, relax. I think that's the first thing to do. Like, I know every one of you will do their best they can. And I think having that credit of saying, okay, I'm trying the hardest being a good mom, I'm trying the hardest to be a good partner, and maybe even as well trying to be a good woman, and understanding that there's nothing we can do to be perfect. There's no perfect doesn't exist. And giving you the credit of saying, okay, I tried really hard, maybe it didn't get where I wanted today. I think that's the start of releasing that guilt a little bit. And then taking time for yourself. As I said, and even if it's just as little as half an hour, and even if it's just half an hour a week on the beginning, to say, I need a breather, I need to go out for a walk, I need to have a bath for half an hour, and communicate that with your partner, with your family, with your friends. I know community is getting stronger, especially where we are. I can feel that, and people are willing to help out. They understand it. So just raise your voice and say, hey, can you take my baby for half an hour, or asking your partner, can you just watch the baby while I'm having a bath for half an hour and give me that time? I think reclaiming that time for yourself is the most important thing, because we normally tend to give the time to everyone else first. And we can't do that if we don't have the capacity in us anymore. So I think that is the main key to understand. And it doesn't matter. And if it's even 5 minutes in the morning to sit down with your tea, take a few deep breaths, maybe meditate, and just tune in your body, that might help you already. Depends on the person.
So beautiful. And I've had the privilege of being in your meditation classes here locally. And I remember the one that really stood out to me was the going into our bodies, and really that opportunity to remember that we spend so much time, like I said, in our heads or out of our bodies, to have that moment where, you know, you give us this permission slip of just sitting in our body and feeling what that's like. And I actually think it's such a beautiful thing that you do this these meditation sessions, because I feel that even if we don't have any other time during the week, like, this is such a beautiful reminder to just, you know, whatever the theme is for the day, but just to sit in silence, you know, and just be in a space with other people that are very much like us. Like, we all came here for the same reason. So that is beautiful. And I know that those of you who are listening who are local to Lakes Entrance, I will put all the details so you can find Julia. But let's move now into the sex and love and relationship a little bit more. We've spoken about the feminine, we've spoken about the woman, but now I'm curious to know, what do you mostly do in your practice? Do you work with the woman because she is easier, you know, like a woman generally, when she knows, okay, something's happening, my relationship, you know, they are facilitators like you, and she can go to a man. I don't know, would a man seek out a facilitator? So do you go through the woman, or do you work with couples and couples come and somehow the men are open to this?
So there are coaches for everyone. There are coaches specialized in any kind of category. Even if you just say, I want to work with women, you even have to specialize. Okay, do I want to work with women who have certain issues, who are facing certain struggles like divorce or anything? What I'm really passionate about is couples, because that's where my journey started, on seeing how beautiful our relationship has actually transformed. So my main focus is couples, where man, woman, any constellation, woman, man, whatever, you name it, just come and do that together, because this is where the transformation for the relationship happens. However, I also do individual coaching. So mainly with women at the moment. On the beginning, when I started with my studies, I was passionate about men because I feel men need it even more. And you're right, I think men have a bit more of resistance to go and see someone and open up, because men in our society are pictured as these strong warriors that are not allowed to have any emotions, that are not allowed to crumble and have any issues. And so, but I know there are beautiful coaches out there for men, and that men actually start opening up more and more to that.
I wonder whether, sorry to interject, I wonder whether men feel like, you know, that stereotypical couple counseling at a psychologist, that I don't want to go because she'll just tell you that it's all my fault, you know, and when a men go in feeling like, oh, here we go, that's another woman, she'll tell us it's all my fault.
I heard that a lot, unfortunately, and I think that's the wrong approach, because as a counselor, a therapist, or coach, it is not on you to point fingers at anyone. It's not on you to judge, because you're there to help this couple navigate their relationship and their journey. It is not for you to tell them what to do. And that's where I think it's really to understand that this is where coaching comes from. I'm basically trying to guide you and give you options to see what is there and to help you understand. And at the end of the day, what you as a couple make out of it is totally up to you. I help you with tools, with practical tips. We even have like little homeworks and things you do together. But if you do them and if you want to work on it, it's always up to the couple. And it's not on me to judge and say, why haven't you done your homework? Why are you not more connected? Because that's not helpful. And a relationship always consists of or contains two people. So if you start pointing a finger of like, you're the one, you're the bad one, that is not true, because the dynamics are happening between two people. And you always need to look at that. And both people need to work on it together, because they're in a partnership and not just, oh, I want to get this out of it and you just have to give it to me. That is not a loving, kind relationship. That is more a demand. And that's something to really look at. Why is it? Why is the dynamic like that? And I think it's really important to understand that in coaching, we're working with both parties. And both parties have equal rights to raise their opinion, to raise their voice, and to make it work and to put the effort in. Otherwise, it wouldn't work.
I hear that. So, Julia, let's say we have someone listening to you say, give examples how, some of the practices and this woman, let's say, that's listening is thinking, I'm sorry, I'm picking on ladies, but is thinking, I don't think I can sit there and stare into my husband's eyes, or I can't sit still, and there seems to be obviously some sort of barrier, but let's say she knows something has to change, right? What would you say would be a good place for her to dip her toes into this, so that she doesn't feel like, oh well, if I can't sit and stare into my husband's eyes, then I guess there's no hope for us?
So I would definitely go into it and say, okay, what are you feeling in your body? Where's the resistance and why is it here? To understand, why are you resisting spending time with your partner or connecting with your partner, doing eye gazing or whichever exercise it is? So what is actually behind all that? And understanding that there is a story behind that resistance is really important, because then you can start to unfold that, unpack it, and then even heal it. So most of the time, there is some childhood wounding coming up, because that's where the deeper parts of us are getting hurt and formed at the same time. And what's important to know is that you basically choose your partner based on things you know from your childhood, from your carers. So we look for traits that are familiar to us. So if you look at your partner and maybe look at your dad or your mom, you will definitely find really familiar traits in your partner from your parents. And that's, on the beginning, it's beautiful because we know how to deal with it. But on the long run, and that's why after your honeymoon phase, often things are getting a bit more complicated and challenging. After that honeymoon phase, all these same points and same patterns and behaviors you actually choose your partner for start to trigger you, because you're like, oh, so much like my dad or my mom, and it came back, and you basically get set back into this childlike being, or your inner child, your smaller version, and then you have to deal with it. But if you don't understand that this is what's happening, you just lash out on your partner and get triggered and triggered over and over again, and you just respond to that old event what happened in the past. And if you are feeling resistance towards your partner, of course I wouldn't make you sit there and stare in your eyes. I would first look at it and say, okay, what's actually happening here? What's the dynamic? Why are things the way they are? Yeah.
I love this. So these are good questions perhaps to start journaling on, what is the resistance? What is happening in your body that makes you feel like you can't do that? That is fantastic. I actually I had a question for you and it just escaped me. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's say, I'm going to come back to that question. I just got to remember. But my other question is, so a lot of your work now is online, in person. Is one better than the other?
I do both. Most of it has happened online so far, but I actually at the moment feel like people craving the personal contact again, especially after all the lockdowns we experienced and not really having the social interaction with people. So I really love the in-person sessions as well, because you actually have more of the chance to be in that space in a completely different way. Online, yes, you will feel things, but I feel like personal, it's even like being in person, it's even more dominant. You can feel the energy better and you respond to it much quicker, I find.
So would you then be combining yoga knowledge with the practice, with the counseling? Have the two people there? Would it be a group session? If you can paint us a picture, just in case anyone is feeling worried about, what that would look like.
So at the moment, I'm working on different offers. So the coaching so far has happened in private sessions. So either as with a single person or with a couple, it's just the two of you or the one, and we just talk and do the embodiment practices. I do mix up yoga, or I come in with some yoga practices depending on what's actually happening in the person. So for example, if I feel like they're stuck in their body and they need to shift some, then we would move, or I would use some breath work as well from yoga if I think it's needed. I also do, I did start having some little retreats where the last one was called Total Self-Love Embodiment Retreat, where basically I invite people into our new space here in our new studio in Lakes, and we just do some work on that. And we did embodiment practices. We started talking in a little group. We were 8 people, and with me it was 9. So it's a really small, intimate setting where you have the chance to open up, but you don't have to. You're not forced to if you don't want to. And so that's one way I started bringing this work into the community. And I just designed a couples workshop series of like 3 workshops coming up in the next couple of months, where I invite 5 couples into a space, and I will start giving some knowledge and information around certain topics. We will do some connection and communication tools to improve the relationship in a way the couple would love to. And it's going to be a series of 3 because it's a big topic. And if we start unfolding, so we have to first unpack what's happening and why. And if we understand what's happening, then we actually move further into the healing and into the support of it. So there will be different offerings coming up like that, where basically everyone could choose what they feel called to, what they feel drawn to.
I had to write down my question because it just came to me. I love these offerings because yes, they cater to different, like I know with my clients, and I don't work in terms of love and relationships per se, but I know that my clients who have sought out relationship coaches or love coaches, facilitators, I often hear it because I work predominantly with women, but they often say, well, I really would love to do that, but I find it difficult to convince my partner, husband, because he doesn't want to, he doesn't believe in it, he doesn't think anything's wrong. And what I have noticed happens often is that one grows, because she might be listening to you, might be coming to your sessions, so one grows, the other one doesn't, and there's this disconnect then. Do you have any ways that you can share with us to help these women convince their partners to come and seek you? Or
it is a common problem, and I don't think convincing is the right way, because if someone doesn't want to do something and you force them, it's never going to have the same outcome. However, I think there will be ways where your partner will open up. So what you just described is so typical, like one person is growing. Stereotypically, it is the woman because they're more invested and they're looking into things. There are also men that actually want to grow. But most of the time, from my experience, it's definitely the woman. And then so the woman starts to grow and develop and sees all these things happening with her relationship, with her partner and all that. I feel, especially in my relationship as well, sometimes it just takes a couple months for the partner to move up onto this level where the woman has developed. it is painful, because in these couple of months where you're waiting for the transition and the healing to happen for your partner, you're like, oh, why don't you see that? Why don't you understand that? And you get frustrated. Totally understand that. I'm going through that all the time. But eventually your partner actually understands. And I think the main thing to actually make that happen is to be that person with the change and constantly show it. Live that version who you want to be and show it to your partner. And your partner will understand, and he will see the change in you. He will experience a change in the relationship, because if you develop, you will also relate differently. So everything will change. Everything will be impacted by your own personal development. And he will understand that, and he will feel that. And eventually he's like getting it. And you're like, oh, why did it take so long? But naturally, it will take a little while for them to actually let it sink in and realize that. And what you can do is just talk and open up the whole time. Like, be open to him, explain him things, what you see. Try to do it from a nice, kind angle of like I statements, rather than you do this, you do that, because that's attacking and that just causes naturally more resistance. And if you start doing that, your partner will eventually come around and it's like, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe it is actually worth looking into up-leveling our relationship. And I don't know, it depends on the man. Maybe they are drawn to listen to some podcasts or even reading books. There's so much out there at the moment what you can just forward to him, and or even YouTube. There are beautiful coaches on YouTube who have amazing channels for men as well. And maybe they're drawn to that, and maybe that will change their perspective.
Yeah. That's so good, because it's like you go first, and then your energy, as it changes, it will have that ripple effect. And if he is invested in catching up or being on the same level in terms of relationship, then of course he will. So let me ask you this, Julia. How important are date nights beyond the dating? Like, because first when we get together, of course, we go out, we date, and then we get married, and then it kind of gets left to the side. How important is that from your experience?
Look, it depends on how you're relating. So if you have connecting moments throughout the day, I don't think you need to schedule a date night, because your connection's really strong. If life gets in the way and you're really busy, like you have kids, all the obligations for school and you work, and you're just home tired in the evening and your weekends are full because you have to organize all these things, then it might be wise to actually start scheduling date nights. So it really depends on your dynamic and your life, if you need like a date night scheduled, or if it happens naturally on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, it's not a question I can say yes or no to, because it really depends on the circumstances.
Love that. Yeah, because it's not and I think, I actually, speaking from my own experience, I always felt like we should be doing regular dates, but I actually never took into consideration, I think till you just said that we have throughout our days, we spend a lot of time together. So we have this connection, and it's not perfect, but we can see each other's growth, or going through these, as I call, going through the mud, the growth period. And I'm like, okay, just, it's time to step back, let them work it out. But thank you for saying this, because that actually makes me feel better, because I always go like, oh, we don't have time to do date nights, and it feels silly to us, because it feels a little bit like you should. It feels enforced, right? Because in order to stay connected, but I actually didn't take into consideration the little moments and the little knowings that we do. Now, Ryan and I tend to go most mornings after school drop off here to our beach, and we grab a coffee and we take a blanket and we go into the dunes and just sit and either meditate or, like just talk or whatever, do a bit of Reiki. And it just is so unplanned. It is so, and again, it doesn't feel like we have to do this. We just go like, oh, the weather is nice, it feels good, let's go and do it. So I really love that you said that, because it makes me feel a little bit lighter and better about that.
Before you continue, sorry.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what you described is what I mean. You're connecting because it feels good. You're not connecting because we schedule date night. How often are you scheduling date night and then you're going on your date, whatever it is you do, but then your head is not in the right space because something else just happened and came up, and you're not really focusing with your partner, and you're not present, and you're not really listening. So what's the point of that? That's not going to be a connection time for you. It's not going to be quality time. Whereas what you just described is, we feel this urge of we want to spend time together. We sit on the beach, and even if it's just 10 minutes, but it's time together, you talk, you connect on a deeper level, and that's all you need.
Very wise words, Miss Julia. So this brings me to the part of the episode where we only know what we know, we don't know what we don't know. So in our beautiful conversation that felt very intuitive, is there anything that you wish I asked because you feel like, oh, this is important, but I didn't ask you?
I don't think there's anything you didn't ask. What popped in my head when you said that with the connection, I want to give a little tip to people, because if you feel like you're rushing through life and you're not connecting with your partner on a daily level, start trying that. So every time you see each other, like your husband or your partner's coming home from work, or you're coming home from work or from wherever, give each other a hug for 20 seconds. And then really feel each other. Don't just count the seconds down. Oh, when is that done? No, feel each other. And then notice when your partner's actually relaxing in your arms. And this is a time of deep connection where you both hold each other in that space where you're safe, you're protected, and you're loved. And already these 20 seconds, if you try that every time, or even once a day when your partner comes back from work, it will change so much. It's incredible.
Goosebumps. What a beautiful tip. That is fantastic. And it doesn't feel confrontational. It just, because who doesn't love hugs? That is fantastic. And, there's some magic in hugs. I got to say, because I'm the kind of person, I'm never the first one to let go, when there's a hug. I'm just holding on. But there's something beautiful that you can convey through your hug, your energy, your heart, your soul, I've got you, you're safe. So this is a beautiful tip. Normally now I would ask you, do you have a tip or a message? You've kind of given us a tip, but if there is anything else you wish to add, anything that's coming up for you that our local listeners could come in and work with you, or of course I'm going to put all the links so anyone who is outside of our little town can connect with Julia, because you do remote and online. So, but anything that you want to share?
Well, I just want to share that don't give up on your relationship. Don't think your partner is resistant, he doesn't want to do any work. Sometimes it just looks different to what you expect it to look. And if you start doing the work, you're working on yourself, you're informing yourself, you're growing, it will have an impact on your partner. And I think that's more important. And being connected to what is really true to you will have an impact on your whole life, including your partner. And I think that's the first thing in the first step, to understand that you can't just start demanding your partner to change. The change also has to come from you. And I think most of the time it has to come from you first. And then everything else will unfold. And I'm available in Lakes. I'm available online, like you said already, to help. I'm happy to have chats on social media, or even send me an email. I'm totally open for that. And come and join one of my workshops if you're in Lakes. There will be more coming soon. So I'm really looking forward to all that, and just really passionate in helping people to understand and transform and heal.
Yeah, and then you'll be seeing out the year with a little baby soon.
That is very true. Yes. My relationship will transform.
Oh, it'll be so beautiful. And I think you have this beautiful advantage now of knowing all this. And thank you also for sharing, because I know that there could be women who are currently pregnant going, you know, through that rite of passage of becoming a mum for the first time. And so to have your wisdom, you know, here today, I know that that will help a lot as well, alleviate that pressure, that stress I didn't have, but we navigated through it. Thank you, Julia. So yes.
Yeah, if any moms feel like overwhelmed with that, or moms to be, reach out. I'm going through exactly the same thing. And I think what you said earlier, I resonated with that. If I would have had a child in my 20s, I don't think I would have been ready to the extent I'm ready now to have my child. I think that's a big thing in society now, why women decide to have kids way later, because they want to be ready and more informed. So if you feel overwhelmed and you just want to talk to someone who's going through the same thing, just reach out. I'm happy to talk about that.
Julia is definitely a beautiful song to talk to, and there's always something special when you're going through it as it's happening, not something that happened 15 years ago and you're trying to, you know, bring the pieces together. I think it's kind of like remembering. I remember I have a friend now who is going into motherhood now, and she's asking me questions, and I just didn't realize how many things I forgot. And then some things I'm like, you know what, don't worry about this. This is so outdated. This won't serve you anymore. But I go like, you know what, you just got to go through this experience. And when you're lucky enough to find someone who is going through it at the same time, then that's beautiful, because you can both exchange experiences and, you know, pains and niggles and worries. So that was fantastic. Now I will hook up all Julia's links and social media. It'll be in the show notes. It will be linked to wherever you will be watching or listening to this. And I hope that, yeah, if you feel drawn to Julia's work, if you feel like, I'm not even sure if I need, but just message Julia. She's very friendly, so she will she'll tell you whether you know this is for you or not. Thank you for being my guest here today, Julia, and I hope you have a beautiful day. And thank you everyone for listening. I will be with you next week.
Thank you, Kasia, for having me and giving me that platform. Thanks.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye.